Like, who are you when nobody else is in the room? Who truly are you? Like, what is your character when you're untangling the Christmas lights? Like, who are you really?
Welcome to Share.Care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.Care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.Care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Hello and welcome to eShare. Here we discuss, promote, and share the benefits to all from living in an egalitarian society, including for men. Inaccurate propaganda leads some men to believe that they miss out with equality. The reality, suppressing women is detrimental to men. Creating a world where everyone can contribute equally makes everyone better off. Today, it is my great pleasure to welcome Clarissa Burt, an internationally acclaimed, award-winning media personality, producer, director, writer, author, public speaker, and former supermodel. Plus, she's the winner of Celebrity Survivor. Clarissa is the founder and CEO of In the Limelight Media. She's a passionate advocate of women's empowerment and an award-winning international best-selling author of the book, The Self-Esteem Regime. Welcome, Clarissa. Well, there's a lot there to cover.
It is to finally meet you. And I think I need to tell all of your listeners that you're probably the most patient man on the planet, because we've been trying to get this done for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's my fault. I'm sorry. But here we are today. And I'm so excited to be able to talk about the thing that I love the most. And that's just, getting everybody on board with feeling really good about themselves, because the better you feel about yourself, the better you're going to be for everybody else.
And I really love that you've gone there and explained to the audience that we've had a number of hiccups where we've missed each other. Same token too, I'm reading out the blurb and getting a little bit flustered there. And I like to keep things raw, because too often today I find that you look out there and there's so much on social media, so much plastic out there where people cut and edit and move things around to make everything look perfect. And we forget that we're real human beings underneath. And with that, what do you think that does to people's self-esteem to actually present this, well, what is essentially a false personality?
Yeah, well, I think, self-esteem 101 would be never compare yourself to anyone else, right? Easier said than done, especially with social media these days, because all you have to do is look around and oh my goodness, we're comparing ourselves to Tom, Dick, and Harry, and we're fine short. It's like, wow, is Tom really doing all that? And, is Harry really getting along that well? And be real careful with all that stuff, because so much of it is what they want you to perceive. And I'm not saying people are out there lying, but I will say they're out there stretching the truth a bit or making it look better than it really is. In some cases, and in some cases, people are doing really, really well. And that's awesome. That's awesome too. We want to be everybody's best cheerleader, but what we don't want to do is make ourselves feel bad because we don't feel as though we're shaping up to Tom, Dick, and Harry. So we just want to be, really mindful about being the best person that we can be and working on our personal development all the time. It is a lifelong process. It's one of those kind of things that you have to put some time into and some thought into, and really want, my new mantra now is I want to be a better person tomorrow than I am today. What does that mean exactly? Not quite sure. What might be, and I'm making this up as I go. Maybe I'm going to be really sure to take all of my, I think you say vitamins, we say vitamins and supplements, so that I'm keeping my body nice and healthy, or I'm going to drink an extra glass of water or two, or I'm going to be just real kind to someone else. And, whatever that may be that day. I know that I'm always feeling better when I do something good for someone else. It's, again, there's, self-esteem 102, it's pretty simple stuff, but it really is, it kind of are the rules and principles that are good. There's a good today as they were 100 years ago and 1,000 years ago. So I'm going to go with, let's be really careful and really mindful about manners. Remember
Mm.
how we to be real nice to each other and kind to each other and please and thank you. And, we get up we stand up in public transportation for a pregnant woman or for the elderly. We would do really kind things. I think we've gotten way, way, way too far off the other side of the tracks here, and we need to bring it back home. And when I say bring it back home, a lot of things, that are going on even at home, letting the children, and look, I'm not a parent and I understand the difficulties. I can only try to understand how difficult it is to rear children these days. But I do also know that children really today, like 100 years ago and 1,000 years ago, I'm assuming, I wasn't there, but I can only guess, really need the attention of their parents. And if everybody's on devices all the time, there's this really funny thing, Damien, that says something along the lines of, we're all sitting in the same room to be connected with people farther away, and we're all farther away from the people that we really want to be connected to, which are sitting right next to us. It's like, what are we doing with these devices? Are great, lots of fun. Gaming is fun, messaging is, all of that is fun. But let's just try to be really careful about where we're going and how we're rearing these kids. The CDC is coming out with some really, really scary data. And that is almost 50% of our children. And I'm going to go with, here in the States, this is data, but I'm going to go even further and say, hey, this is probably worldwide. When we say that, when they're telling us that, most of our children that are junior high, high school, college age are anxious, depressed, thinking about committing suicide or have committed suicide. These are extremely alarming numbers. And it all starts with self-esteem, and it all starts with the perception of self. And it all starts with a really strongly rooted sense of who we are and where we want to be in life.
How have we got to this point? I mean, we've got the most knowledge ever in history. And, if you want the answer to anything, you're a couple of mouse clicks away. Pretty much anything you want, you can do that. Yet people feel, and we're more connected. I mean, you and I are across the planet, and we're talking to each other now. COVID, as terrible as it was, it created this ability where people went, oh, we've got this wonderful thing that we can connect with others. How is it that we've got to this stage where we feel more alone than ever in history, even though we're connected? What is this? Is it, because when I look at social media, for example, a lot of it is people putting their point of view out there, but I don't hear a lot of listening. Is it a case of where we've become more self-centered, and as a result of that, we're really not focusing on what's important, and not connecting with people? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, as I said before, I think we lost our sense of, being mindful about manners and the proper thing to do. I think we've lost a sense of values and what they are. If I were to ask any of the kids today, I'm going to venture to say, give me your top 4 values. Give me your drop and give me 5. What are your top 5 values, right? I don't know that any of them would be able to come up with even what a value is. Like, what's your value system? What do you believe in? And what hill are you ready to die on? Here are mine. For example, I say I like to take the high road. I believe in honesty, integrity, gratitude, and honor. And that's a hill I'm ready to die on. It makes it a little more difficult to be around me, I think, because I try to be forgiving and give a little wiggle room. But I really believe that if I come with a strong value system to the table, I'm bringing a better person to the people that are here. And I hope that I will leave some really genuine, and look, I'm at an age now where I can say these things. I'm 64. I can go ahead and say now, I feel as though at my age, I am a leader and that I am someone that others, the youngins, might look up to and say, I really would like to learn something from Clarissa. In fact, I've worked with many, many, many interns and had an absolute blast doing it. But I really believe that the value systems are something that we really need to, again, be mindful of, stay, really close to and live by. I want to be, I'm radically honest. I'm radically honest with myself and with others. And by the way, not everybody likes that. Not everybody digs it, but they know that if they're talking to me, they know exactly that I'm a no BS kind of gal, Also, so honesty, integrity. I think if you can live your life in integrity, like, who are you when nobody else is in the room? Who
Mm.
truly are you? Like, what is your character when you're untangling the Christmas lights?
Mm.
Like, who are you really? Gratitude is self-explanatory. Give me your top 5. Drop in, give me 5. What are the top 5 things you need to be thankful for? I can give you 10 right now. Every
Mm.
day of the week. And I do make sure that I'm really thankful for the food in my pantry, the roof over my head, a warm bed to sleep in, the water that comes out of my tap, the family that loves me. I could be here all day. And
Mm.
if you say, I've been lucky enough, truly lucky enough to travel a good part of the world. And I've seen what a lot of people in this world live like
Mm.
and what you have to do for a clean drop of water.
Mm.
I'll never forget those images. They're burned into my soul. I
Yeah.
will never forget. I will never forget. And I know that I have nothing to complain about.
Mm.
And then again, honor. Honor is something that, is something that we have really truly forgotten.
Mm.
And again, that's another one of those kind of things that, here's a quick honor story. So we were talking about me being on the Survivor, and,
Mm.
we're hungry and we're not eating, and we had a real good time. This is about 12 years ago. I was on Survivor, and I was on an island with 12 other people in Nicaragua. And one day we had an exercise to go up into a helicopter, and the 2 girls that were younger and the bikini babes and lovely girls, real fun. They got with the pilot, said, "Hey, pilot guy, don't say anything, but we're really starving. Can you go in that kiosk over there and get us something to eat? Because whatever it is, we're just hungry." So the guy, of course, he goes over and he gets a bag, and he comes back with this brown bag and gets in the helicopter and hands it back to them. Oh my
Mm.
God, they were so happy they had, well, I don't even remember what it was. It was probably some candy bars and a couple of crackers or something. I don't know. And I felt this tap on my shoulder. And I looked back and they were proffering some food to me.
Mm.
And I went, oh, no, thank you. Now, it makes me look real brown nosy, and it makes me look like goody two shoes, and it makes me look, but I knew that it was not the honorable thing
Mm.
to do. It was against the rules.
Yeah.
It would have been a lie. It would have
Yeah.
been something I would have to hide. And it wasn't fair to the other 9 people that didn't have anything to eat.
Mm.
It was against the rules. And people think that I'm always so straight laced and I'm really, buttoned up so tight. I'm really not. I mean, I could be the life of the party too, but it has to be, so for me, it just has to be, it has to feel like it's an integrity. That is really
Mm.
important to me. And then honor is always doing the right thing.
You think that helps from the perspective of when we're talking about self-esteem? Because I know a lot of my friends are in that category where they're extremely successful. Then the one thing they do all have in common is they have that integrity, they have that honor. Where if they say something, that's their word. If they give their word, they'll stick to their word.
That's right.
Do you think that's part of developing a healthy self-esteem, that you are true to yourself?
Giving your word, your word is the most important thing you will ever give to anybody, apart from your
Mm.
heart, something different. But your word is your honor. It is your integrity, and it is your honesty. And it is something
Mm.
that once it's said cannot really not be taken back. A
Mm.
promise is a promise. And someone that lives in honor knows that they must make good on that.
Mm.
One, because it makes someone else feel so good. And when you're doing that, well, you've got a nice little new lilt in your step as well, don't you? I
Yeah.
mean, it's just one of those really nice, when you're doing something good and something nice for somebody else, it's kind of like, well, you're feeling pretty good about yourself as well. The 4, pillars of self-esteem are look good, feel good, be good, and greater good. When
Mm.
we're looking here and we're feeling kind of, we're feeling good about ourselves, we can walk out with a whole different kind of self-confidence that day. When
Yeah.
we are feeling good, all of our diet, exercise, nutrition, working out, all of that sort of thing makes us really feel good. We know we're bringing a good us to the table to that day.
Mm.
Look good, feel good, be good, or all the other things. It's your leadership, it's your relationships, it's your finances, it's your business ethics, it's all the other things that we are, your
Mm.
faith, all of those things. And then greater good is giving back, tithing, paying it forward, volunteering, all of those different things. People say, how
Mm.
did you get into meet Pope John Paul II and get those private audiences? Well, because I did a lot of volunteer work. When I was living in
Mm.
Italy for 30 years, I did a lot of volunteer work, and I got called in to be recognized by the Pope.
Mm.
That's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I don't say that to impress you. I say it just so that you understand the importance of, people see, people are watching. you can't, just blab out a promise or, or give someone your word and not be good to it. People know that. And another thing you've probably heard a million times, and that is people aren't going to remember who you were. They're not going to remember, your accomplishments. People will remember how you made them feel.
Mm. That's an interesting point you make, because I learned that way too late in life, was that, I used to try and explain things technically to people and explain the facts and didn't. And then when I learned that people remember how you made more so how you make them feel, it changed the approach of how I dealt with things, was able to create better relationships. But coming back to
Right.
that honor part and your word, it's interesting, as you said, that people notice. And even I've noticed from my perspective with a number of friends that are now friends, but when we initially met, we were talking about some things and I said I was going to do something, and I got a comment back going, yeah, you've said that, it's going to happen, isn't it? And it was interesting that came out from people that I'd only recently met and how that projects. Do you think people misunderstand how important that is to creating your own self-esteem, to having your own confidence in yourself, being true to yourself?
Let me answer that by going back real quick to the survivor story. When the girl
Mm.
said this, and I went, "Oh no, thank you." How
Yeah,
do you think it made them feel?
yeah,
How do you think about that? If you were in their position and you handed them, and I went, "Oh, no, thanks," and
mm.
turned back around. How do you think? First of all, they were scared because they thought I was going to tell. I never would do that. But now they have put themselves in a compromised position, haven't they?
Yeah,
Because I could have gone to the production and I could have said on live television that week, "Hey, by the way, the two bikini babes, guess what? I didn't do that because
yeah,
it's not my job to do that." Right.
mm,
So then what happened is where we were very, very close, the three of us, there was then a scission, right? There was this breaking apart a little bit
mm.
because now they put the blame on me. Well, the who does she think she is kind of thing came out. You know what I mean? So so they had to then justify
Mm,
their wrongdoing, if you will. I'm sure
yeah,
they may have seen something wrong, but they're not. But I'm going to say they had to justify their wrongdoing by
mm,
making me the bad guy. So be
yeah,
real, real careful with that as well. So, which leads us into toxicity, right? It leads us a
mm,
little bit into the toxic relationships in our life. And having the courage, self-esteem is a lot about courage and the
mm.
boundaries that we create. And the courage being, the bigger, better, bolder, and brighter I want to become, Damien, the more I will probably not be the most popular person in the room.
Mhm,
I might be known and I might be revered and I might be esteemed and I might be respected, but I may not be the most popular, because you're bringing a different set of rules with you.
mm,
That's what I do. The toxicity factor when we're in toxic relationships and we start to move away from that, knowing that our path isn't that one anymore. Couldn't be. People are going to get hurt. They're going to get their nose out of joint. They're going to be offended. They're going to blame you. They're going to get angry. They're going, all of that. That's their stuff. It's not.
is that a case of who you're hanging around with, though? Because
Yep.
I notice what you're talking about there, and it's similar from my perspective, where I do that same thing, but the people I'm associating with actually respect that, and they like me more because of that. They know I'm a lot more tactful in how I put things nowadays than I used to be in the past. But
Right.
they're aware that, the people that I'm around are very much aware that they're going, that who I am this is who I am. And they not only respect that, they like that more. They
Yeah.
feel safe with that because they know this is
Right.
the real me.
Right.
Is that but like you say, if you're associating with people like the bikini babes that you were talking about,
Right.
good way to sell it, the bikini babes.
And they
But
were
if
great
you're
girls.
associating with those people who aren't operating with integrity, well, if you're not part of that clique with, as you've highlighted, then they're at risk for being exposed for not being authentic. And then all of a sudden they've got to defend themselves, which means making you, put you in a compromised position. So is that part of your self-esteem, is being careful about who you associate with?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely all day long. You have to be really careful about your association. It's really hard to do because it's unless you're Einstein or you have some sort of, crystal ball in front of you, you got to you got to figure it out. Might take a minute. like when you first meet somebody and you're making new associations or friendships or whatever, it takes a minute. And you must be really, really careful with that. I've learned that along the way, and I've learned it over and over and over again. And it's something you really have to be, again, very mindful, but also, again, back to the word courage, is knowing that you too are going to have to, I talk about taking the high road, but I also talk about, the road, going the extra mile. That extra mile is a very, very long mile. It is a dark mile. It is a rainy, dark, cold, blustery, mile, and you do not have on your wellies or a raincoat. You don't have an umbrella. It is lightning and storming, and it's just can be. And when you're looking back with anybody, is anybody else on this road with me? You're alone, and it's dark, and nobody's there to hold your hand, and nobody's going to show you the way. There is an inkling, however, at a little bit of a dot of a light at the end of that mile, right?
Yeah.
And you just, you've got to go through it to get through it. And that's where, you separate the men from the boys and the women from the girls. That's where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those kind of things that a lot of people will stop. They won't go there. They'll go, well, I've come this far, but that mile, see that extra mile? Too damn dark for me. I'm not going down. What do you mean there are no street lights? I'm not going down there. So, it's one of those kind of things that you have to really want to live in full self-esteem, to have a value system, to be a better person tomorrow than you are today, to know that you deserve all the greatest things in life, and that no matter what you were taught with your natal tribe, with your friends and, friends and family, some of your educative institutions, potentially some faith, I don't know, don't want to go there, but there are things that we are formed with along the way that don't serve who we are. It's not now you're always going to go home for Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner or whatever. We're all going to home. Love your mom, love your dad. But not everything they taught you was something that will serve you now. And that same, for them, some of the things that we are being taught can go back generations and generations, depending, right, on who was taught what. So it takes the courage to be able to, first of all, continue the path on personal development. And, when I was a kid, Damien, we had 3 bookstores in the United States. It was Walden Books, Border Books, and Barnes & Noble. That was it. I know. And we didn't have computers and internet and, all that. So,
it was the same when I'm growing up too. I'm older than I look.
My path to salvation was the self-help section in these books. And the self-help section was about this big, in all the stores. And you really, it was like, well, all right, I got to figure this thing called life out. So where do I go? Who do I talk? You didn't talk to anybody about this stuff back then. You just kind of found your way. Today, I'm proud to say that my book is in Barnes and Noble. It's right on the shelves. And the personal development section, it's a billion-dollar industry, personal development, just in the US alone. And there are rows and rows and rows of books that talk to people, that help people, assist people, that sustain us with the questions that we have about how can I be a better person tomorrow? How can I get out of the pain that I'm in? What is it that I missed along the way? Where is it that I need to be going? I mean, I think I have an idea, but where can I get the help I need? By the way, it's called self-help. It's not called shelf help. So please, if you buy the damn book, read it, do the work, do the work. And people get to first chapter and go, oh crap. My first chapter is release. Release is 80% of the game. If you can release the old stuff, because chapter 2 is rebuild, in order to rebuild the new stuff you want in your life, look, I'm telling you, it's not easy. The book, by the way, my book is not a read. My book is a resource. It's a manual. It's a place that you go to. There are case studies, the Clarion Call, Clarissa's Corner. There's a review. There's homework. There's affirmations. There's all kinds of tools and resources in the book that will help you get from point A to point B. And you might stay on chapter 1 for a while. You may not be ready to go to chapter 2 for a minute. But you'll go at your own pace. But I really underscore the importance of forging through. if you do want, look, it takes work. It's like anything else.
Is
It's
that
not one of
okay?
those.
Because what I like about your book, and you said your first chapter is release, and that's
Yes.
80% of the work.
Yeah.
And from my understanding of the work that I've done is that change happens in an instant. It's being ready to change that takes the work.
That's right.
And is it the case that we actually make it harder for ourselves because we're resisting it? Is that, because looking at what you've got in your book, I'm gleaning that in there. Is there any tips that you give to people
Scary
to how to
stuff.
release?
It can be scary stuff when you start taking the deeper dive into your life and into you and into yourself.
Mm,
How let me ask you this. How are you dishonoring yourself? Just go
mm,
down the list. Think about it. How are you dishonoring yourself? Are you
mm,
staying in a toxic relationship? Like, are you waiting for
mm.
something to change in your life?
Yeah,
Are you willing to wait forever
yeah.
for that to take place in your life? Are you afraid of being alone? Like we could be here all day with the case scenarios. Or are you really ready to get up, take the work, do the work that it takes, and then go, create the life that you want? There's a blueprint, that you can create for the life that you want, and you can get it and achieve it and be it. And it's the most amazing thing when it happens. And it will. You must put in, I call it the work. Sometimes it's play, but you really are going to have to, come to terms with things about yourself that you may not like.
Mm.
But the really cool part about any of this is that bingo bango, it's not that hard to change if you really want the change.
Well, that's the part, and what I get to is, and from that perspective, is from and I've made my life difficult in the past, but now I realize that life is actually easy. We make it complicated. We make it
We are the
not
ones
hard.
complicated.
Yeah,
Exactly. We do
and
complicate it.
because I was
Yeah.
wondering from that perspective, you're talking about that journey and making it hard and finding the way to make it fun. When you look at, for example, you're in America. You guys created the first feature-length animated movie, Walt Disney, with Snow White. And when they're in the house with the birds and the animals cleaning, what are they singing? They sing "Whistle While You
Whistle
Work."
while you work. Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't think they were aware then, but now we know that you just have to think a happy thought and your body starts producing dopamine and serotonin.
Well, let me
Isn't
just
it?
tell you that there's another really great saying. I'm sure you've heard this as well. And when the first time I heard it, I went, damn, that is so good. And it stuck with me. And that is, worrying is praying for what you do not want. So the whole
Mm,
worry thing, and then we can go back to fear,
yeah.
fear. Oh, I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid. Well, fear of what? Fear of failure. Oh,
Mm,
failure. Your first attempt in learning? You mean that? Failure, fail. First attempt in learning. Well, good, celebrate it, because you're not, I don't think the first car came off of the Ford assembly line, nor was the first, Edison light bulb, perfect the first time they tried either.
well,
So,
10,000 times, wasn't it, for the light
failing
bulb?
is that much closer to success. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Beginners
people are,
suck. We call it beginners suck. When you start
yeah,
doing something, you're going to suck at it for a little while until you get good at it.
absolutely. Here's another one that I really like, and it goes something like this. Yeah, sometimes the grass is green. You think you think the grass is greener on the other side until you find out it's fake.
Yeah, or it's just the same,
Right.
no different.
Yeah, of course. You find out that it isn't all, it's perception a lot, especially
Mm,
in getting back to social media and where we were going with the kids. The perception of what they are perceiving is real, isn't real. Dove's
mm,
self-esteem project came out in April, being Women's Month, with another amazing campaign, because they do great work around, girls and
mm,
self-esteem. And it was, turn your back. It was basically like hashtag turn your back and a hashtag no filters. And they were saying, the 11, 12, 13-year-old girls were using this filter called the glamour filter, which was making them much prettier, if you will, than they are.
mm,
Their lips were a little thicker, their eye, all this stuff going on, and, giving them unrealistic expectations. So they're
mm,
feeling themselves much better through a filter than they are in real life. And this wreaks havoc on your self-esteem at an early age, because
yeah.
once you turn that filter off, you're back to being plain Jane, aren't you? You're back to, the clock struck
Mm,
12, and the pumpkin is now, the carriage is now back to a pumpkin, right?
mm,
So, the whole Cinderella story. So there was this big push, and there still is, about getting rid of all the all the fake that's around, and just being really happy that you get to be you. You get to be the person that you are, and that can be in a really extraordinary, a really extraordinary place to be. You may not always think it that way, but remembering what I just said, the grass may seem greener on the other side until you find out that it's fake.
Mm.
And I want to say that again because it's such an important thing. I think it's real important to remind everybody. Yeah.
You think but from that perspective, I mean, how do we get back to that? Because I'm fortunate. I've had my look at my family and my background, and I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened there. There's some good stuff, some not so good stuff when I was growing up, and when I look at now, and you talk about social media and parents, and I love watching parents that complain about, they're sitting there complaining about their children always on the devices while they're texting somebody, or doing something like that. And
Yes.
and I look at that. I have a 14-year-old son, and he, we go out at times, and he'll come out with my friends. And I noticed the first time I noticed, he left his phone on his desk, and I said, you left your phone there. Do you want to bring that? You might get bored. And he goes, no, I don't need it.
Cool.
And it was, so
Very cool.
I'm just wondering from that perspective, is it a case too, from that self-esteem, if we really want to encourage our children, we need to be the right role model for them. We need to put it down and put that. And how do you encourage someone, through that perspective to go, hey, I can put this down. I can turn my phone off. It has a stick on it. It has this little button called silent.
Exactly. Well, because connecting with somebody, one to one, human to human, face to face and eyes to eyes is one of the most beautiful experiences, that we can, as human beings, can live. I don't care if it's father to son, mother to daughter, vice versa, your best, whatever. I mean, and I really do believe that there should be an hour or 2 hours of every day where everybody puts them down. You just got to, and I really advocate for the kitchen table again. Come back to dinner, come to the kitchen table. Sorry about who's paying for the devices. I am. Mom's paying, dad's paying. Really? Great. I'm not trying to be, unkind, but I do really want to connect with you guys. And I think that, the parents need to take back the role of saying, I used to hear it all the time, until you're living under my roof now, until you can live under a roof of your own, the rules are my rules. and I'll tell you something, Damien, I don't think I'm, any the worse for wear, because the rules, I lived in my parents. Well, I could go down another path with that, but under my parents' home with their rules, I'm fine. I'm great, And so I really do think that, parents do need to say, okay, 5 to 6, dinner time, kitchen table time, all the devices over there in the corner, we'll pick them up, that kind of thing. Anybody can go an hour, 2 hours without their device. Anybody can. I mean, okay, if it's an emergency or whatever, moms, dads, we all want to get back to Netflix and chill. We want to get back to our phones too. But I think we have to start to create those rules, the mini rule. Weekends, we're going camping. Nope, sorry, can't do, can do. We'll have 1 hour in the evening with devices, or something like that. And then, but the rest of it is going to be, communing with nature and, like hanging out with the fish and boating and hiking and laughing and telling stories, and having a beer or something around the campfire, like getting back again, go back to the old time values.
Is it a case of, because I know it's with the devices. I look at my son's school, and he does go to a high-end private school. Devices are not allowed during the day. They put it in the locker at the start of the day. It's there if they need it in an emergency, but they go through the day without having the devices. And they all do that. That connection, is it a case of, we because we're so much on devices just consuming content, that we're not really listening to people interact and listening to that conversation actually, because a lot of times when people are talking, and I was guilty of this a lot when I was younger, when someone's talking to me, I'm immediately thinking of what I'm going to say next, and I've tuned out to what they're saying. Is it a case of that active listening, as they talk about, but really listening to what the other person is saying? We need
Yeah,
more of
I
that.
really think that, the engagement, it's the engagement, isn't it? It's that
Mm,
back and forth. And it's, as parents, it's a really great opportunity to be giving, some really positive reinforcement. And and at the same time, and depending on the conversation, it's also a really perfect time to give food for thought.
mm,
If your parent, if your kid says something to you and you say, well, what if you were to think about it this way? Well, what if, tell me what, in this case scenario, what would you do? If it wasn't, 2 + 2 = 4, but two
mm,
plus two equals 5, what would you say to that? You know,
mm,
well, Dad, I'd say that 2 + 2 = 5 is absolutely ludicrous because there's just no way, Dad, you can fit a square peg into a round hole. It's not going to happen
mm,
unless, and then you can go back and go, unless you do what? You know, and it could happen, right? If you
mm,
got a file and filed down the wood so that it would get. So like this engagement and really getting them to think outside that's the way to keep them engaged. I think is you have them continue to think a little bit, the what ifs, and a little
mm.
bit more outside the box to just keep that conversation going. Because usually, what's a conversation sound like? So, how was your day? Good. Yeah, yeah. How you doing? I'm fine.
Yeah,
How was school? All right.
yeah.
That's not really getting us anywhere, right? I mean, it's not really getting us anywhere. But when the devices are down and you're out, you're fishing in the boat. I'm making these stories up, or you're walking around Disney or whatever it is.
Mm,
You want to be able to have those moments that are just yours. And again, this is where the parents really need to, I think look, they're doing a lot. Don't get me wrong. But, one of the things that, is the most glorious thing I believe about becoming a parent. And I can see it because I see other people doing it is when you have that true, genuine and deep connection.
mm. Is it a case when we're talking about self-esteem? I mean, because you mentioned about having food for thought, and we're talking about listening here, that from that perspective, if you're listening, you're able to, if you're actually really truly listening, that's partly a sign that your self-esteem is quite solid because you're able to accept new information, but also too, it helps grow your self-esteem because you are accepting and as you said, food for thought, something to think about. You're in a
Yeah.
position where you actually can grow, and because you can feel yourself growing, that actually
Yeah.
helps boost your self-esteem.
Yeah. The most important thing I think, is the word trust. And that is your children know
Mm,
from a very early age that if there's one person in the world they can trust, two people in the world they can trust, it's their parents,
mm,
mom, dad, both, one more than the other doesn't matter. But they know that there is that trust factor there and that no matter what,
mm,
I know that if I go to dad, he'll tell me what's up. He'll tell me the truth. He'll answer my questions. He'll always be there for me. There's
mm,
going to come a time when, little girls go to their moms and little boys go to their dads and they have the talk and, that kind of thing. There were some generations of, that you just couldn't go to your parents and talk, about
mm,
my mother. Couldn't talk to her parents about those kind of things. So
mm.
she had to find out on her own. And guess who was, guess what came real early in my mother's life? Yeah, that would be me. So, again, just, being that go-to person that, the
Mm,
one that never lets them down, and you never let them down because you are full of self-esteem, because you are the parent, because you know what's right or wrong, and you know what is best for them. And they
mm,
might, and again, this is as old as the hills, this information, you know much better for them, what is better than they know what's best for them, notwithstanding the fact that they are so much better informed now than we could have ever dreamed to have been. They know
mm,
more about everything so much earlier than we did, which gives them, I think, that edginess to them about, well, what do you know? You don't know anything. I know so much more because I'm on my device all day long.
yeah.
So I think when you asked me the question before, it's like, why is that, where can we, move this into? I mean, why are the kids like this today? It's because they have way too much information. We are making these kids grow up way too damn fast. And especially in these last couple of years, kids are having so here we go. We're going into COVID. They were 2 years where they didn't go to school. They didn't go to prom. They had to stay at home. They were desocialized. They had no real social life.
Mm,
They didn't do the friends, and they only had their devices. So it's really hard for you to say, okay, don't know what to do with you for 2 years because you're going to be in the house with us. So go get on your device.
That was
right?
interesting. I mean,
Now,
for me, COVID was really
now
cool. I
COVID's
loved COVID because
over. Right.
it had
Now
that
COVID's
set.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
What,
now COVID is over, and you want to rip the devices out of their hands, right? So it's a real tricky trail. It's just a little bit of, well, listen, we didn't. Let's just have some time together, and I think that hopefully, the kids will, will put
but
the
is it
device
that? I
down.
mean, because there's studies that were done where they actually found that the children, people highly, highly successful, they studied people like Steven Spielberg and a whole bunch of people that were super, super successful. And they found that the one thing they had in common, they went through many, many variables and they couldn't find anything that linked up, except they eventually got to this one thing they had in common. And it was generally the parent of the opposite sex. So if it was a boy, it was the mum, dad, it was a girl, but not always, but most of the time it was. But at an early age, that child the parents had an unwavering belief in the child's ability. So if the child had said, "Oh, I want to be an astronaut," the parent would have said, "Oh, you're going to be the best astronaut ever. You're going to
Right,
be fantastic. It's not, have a backup plan or whatever, all
right.
these other things." And it wasn't so much the question of whether the child would be an astronaut or not. It was whether the parent believed in their ability. That's what made the difference. And that's where, from that perspective, is it, when we're building self-esteem, can we do, as you talk about in your book, I mean, rebuilding, releasing, then rebuilding, is it a case it
Mhm,
doesn't matter really what age you're at, that you can
mhm,
actually go through that process and say, hey, I believe in my ability. And I look at that, for me, one of the best pieces of advice I got, one of my mentors was the managing director and chairman of the board of BP. And we, he'd always, when I've asked him, text him, he'd text back a few days later. I think it was to make me think about it first. But I had this meeting coming up and I was really concerned about it. And I wrote to him saying, "I'm really concerned. Can I meet with you or talk with you straight away?" And um, unusually, he wrote back immediately. And he wrote back and he said, "Damien, I think you should back yourself that you'll make the right decisions in the moment." Which for me was profound advice. I put it in as the best advice I have, that I just back myself. Is that
yeah,
what self-esteem is? Is just going, hey, I'm look in the mirror, I'm backing myself. I like who I am. Is it as
yeah.
simple as that?
Totally belief in self. It's not only is it, your self-confidence, it's your self-awareness. It's your self, and the want for self-improvement
Mm,
as well. You've got to constantly be on the path of, it's an educative process. You are constantly empowering yourself. And
mm,
sometimes that's a hard place to be. It's like, okay, I'm having a bad. Here's another, I love this analogy, and that is, we only have the tools in the shed. You've heard this before. I know you have. The tools in the shed that that we have in any given time, which is basically
yeah.
what your mentor just said to you. And so those tools, we need to be acquiring more tools all the time as we go through life. Life will
Mm,
teach you, and some of the other ones you're just going to acquire, because life will trigger you. And that's when, again, life will ebb and flow because of those triggers. So when the storm, when the hurricane, when the tornado, when the tempest comes through, right?
mm,
We may, in the storm, once we're standing, I talk about standing strong in our
mhm,
stead. Here comes the storm. We're standing strong in our stead. Oh my God, here comes the storm, the storm, the storm, the storm. Vroom. We might have lost a leaf or two.
mhm,
Maybe in the worst case scenario, we've lost a branch,
yeah.
but we have not been uprooted with the storm and transported away. This is what I talk about all the time when I say, get the tools in the shed, read, these kind of books, do this kind of work. There is no reason today with the internet that, if even for free, you can't get the information that you need. Google it, like whatever
Yeah.
it is you need, help you need, the support you need is there. And people are intrinsically good. People do want to help, right? So get
Mm,
those tools in the shed and make sure that you are, again, being a better person tomorrow than you are today, making sure that your value systems are in place, making sure that you have very strong boundaries. And people think that when you're creating boundaries, boundaries are basically teaching people how you will or will not be treated. That's
mm,
basically what a boundary is. And that is a strong self-esteem action right there.
yeah.
When you say, hey, listen, and people a lot of times they think, oh, I'm creating a boundary. I've got to get angry and I got to get pissed off and I got to scream and I got to yell. And no, None of that. You can do all of this with ease, joy, and glory when you say, excuse me, can I talk just for a second?
Mm.
Whatever you did or whatever you just said, it kind of, kind of landed wrong. It just hit me in hard because, and then maybe if you give a little bit of an explanation, because, when I was 5, whatever, I fell out of a tree, whatever, I banged my head, whatever it is.
Mm.
And the person may say, oh my God, honestly, I didn't mean it that way. I'm so terribly sorry. Oh, I feel horrible I didn't done. Right? You've cleared. If someone comes back and says, oh, come on, get over yourself. I was just kidding, for God's sake. And they have a little bit of an attitude about it, that might be a toxic relationship. There's where you're going to have to say, I might have to back off of that a minute. And, that then is on you, isn't it? You're creating the boundaries. You've made the step to say, I created my boundary. That didn't go as nicely as I would have liked. I probably, because the people that you have around you are really the ones that are going to support you. In your life, you may have 5 of those people. And if you have in a lifetime 5 of those people, I can call it 3 o'clock in the morning kind of people, then you really are very, very rich. You are a rich person.
From the
So,
perspective of, because you've mentioned it a few times, and people talk about, it's hard work. You mentioned the extra mile is hard work. And we have that quote, and you've probably heard it, is work smarter, not harder. Is it a case that we, there's a difference between, I put a difference between effort and work, and certainly effort you can leverage. I mean, heard about fulcrum long enough, foundation strong enough, can move the world.
Yeah.
Is it a case where we start to focus on it being hard work and being difficult, and as a result of that, law of attraction, we make it hard work when we could actually make it a lot easier if we just focused on, okay, what is a simple effort to get there?
It depends on where you are in the self-esteem journey. It depends on if you're starting from ground zero, if it depends on if you had the best parents in the world and you were supported your whole lifetime and you're really feeling, good about yourself, but then something happened in life and it really brought you down, whatever. It depends. Again, everyone is an individual and everyone is different. And yes, of course, that's exactly is the point is, when I say sometimes it's going to be hard work and sometimes, not always, I'm not saying, oh my God, this is going to be the worst thing. It's going to be the best thing that ever happens to you when you actually, are an esteemed being and you're living in happy, healthy self-esteem. Most people don't understand that, self-esteem is, they are living a life in direct proportion to what they think about themselves. And therein lies the conundrum. The changing of the perception of self is where it might be hard work, right?
Yeah.
It might be, and I say hard work because you're going to read it and not want to do the work in the book, or you're not going to agree with the book and the work because so much bigger, better, much more when you've got some lessons to learn because life isn't necessarily working out for you the way you'd like for it to. And that's where I say, if you do have to go the extra mile, you definitely are going to have to do it alone. Nobody's going to help you. It might be darker than you like for it to be. It might be a storm along the way. But again, the tools in the shed are the things that are going to get you through on any given day. And that, and again, we're not all the same. We're not all starting out the same when we pick up a book like mine, in the same level. There are different, obviously we're all individuals. And so with, different backgrounds and different story, everybody comes to the table with a story, right?
Yeah.
So, that's kind of, where are you starting? And I know that once you read book, any of the works of, the personal development gurus, the titans in the industry. My book, my last name being Burt. I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown. So it's Brene Brown, Clarissa Burt, Dr. Deepak Chopra, and Dr. Joe Dispenza, all on the same on the same shelf. And for me, I pick myself. It's like a crowning moment, right?
Yes.
When I see that any of the self-esteem, so I've worked on. I have read and really done the work and the research into this for many, 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 many years. Am I a doctor? No. Do I have a doctorate? No. Do I have, a doctorate in psychology? I do not. But I do have a doctorate in this thing called life. And I know what I needed to do through life experience and how I navigated it. So yeah, I would say absolutely it has a lot to do with the law of attraction. But, you can sit and, own yourself, in a corner all day long and things may not change until you get up and you become the change that you see in the world. I think that that's something, that we all should be pretty mindful of.
Yeah, I love that where you're talking about that you wake up and make that change yourself. Because I
Yeah.
look at my own journey, for example, and I worked really, really hard, read lots of books, and not much happened.
Yeah.
Because it
So
was,
you
I
did
was
the
reading
work.
lots and lots of books, but not really integrating anything.
Right.
And then I found, and when I actually chose one book, and it was actually wasn't a book, it was an audio. It was Wayne Dyer's How to Be a No Limit Person, which I could not tell you how many times I listened to that. But the
How
real
to be,
change
how to
from
be a, say it again, how to
how
be
to be a no limit person, Wayne Dyer.
a
Um,
no limit.
yeah, how to be a no limit person. Yeah,
I've
and
never
it's
heard
not a
that
book; it's an audio. So it's a
one. Okay,
combination
that's
between a
okay.
studio recording which he did and a live performance he did at in Detroit.
Wow.
It's very, very powerful. But he talks about, from that perspective, what I found, sorry, from that was, and from my own journey, and that's why I wanted to touch on this, because the hard work, as I said, it's I think it's, for me, and this is my quote, is the barriers we create in our mind are only there because we create them. And so this
Mhm.
hard work that we're trying to beat down a barrier, it's like we're trying to beat down a barrier that we're putting up in front of ourselves. When we
Right.
realize that we're the one putting the barrier up, we
Right.
can just vanish it and it's gone. And that was
Right.
my journey. It was, I made that switch one day, and it was as simple as that. I was spending so much time working hard, working hard, working hard. And then I went, I like myself. And I just
There
said
you go.
that, I like myself. And,
Yeah. We
and
also
I,
talk about mirror therapy in the book. I don't know if you got that far yet, but we talk
no,
about mirror therapy, which is something that I found when, through Louise Hay's works.
yes.
And then I found it also in Jack Canfield's works.
Mm,
And I adopted it also into our work. And the difference into my work, excuse me, into my book, and the difference being that, when you start with mirror therapy and you start to be your own
mm,
best friend, like you just said, I really like myself, and you do that into a mirror, it's a whole different vibe. It's a whole different experience. And it's
mm,
probably I would say it's the most life-changing,
mm.
life-altering exercise in the book. And yeah, it's an amazing kind of thing when you can actually, usually we're looking at ourselves in the mirror. When you do this work, you're looking into yourself in the mirror, which is a whole different
Yeah.
thing.
And I love that where you've gone to with your book. As you said, part of it is the hard work is that release. It's letting go of all this, because you can't learn anything new until you let
Yeah,
go of something.
that's
From
right.
that perspective, because you mentioned earlier as well, when we're talking about self-esteem, and you mentioned about meeting the Pope, and there's a number of things that you've done. But the part that stood out for me with that is you got to do that because of the giving that you did, that you helped others. How much does giving affect your self-esteem?
Well, I mean, come on. It's like
Yeah, I know it's
it's
probably a
as I
rhetorical
said
question,
before,
but
it's like, no,
but not for everyone. It's not rhetorical.
no, I know, I know, no, no. But it's like it's one of those. First of all, it's again for me, it's kind of like don't compare yourself to anybody else. It's like self-esteem 101, as we said at the beginning. Self-esteem 102 is do something good for somebody else, as I said in the beginning, and that
Mm,
is. Man, it's just the greatest feeling in the world when you do something
mm.
nice and kind that And most people, here's what most people get tripped up. Well, I did for you. Now I gotta wait for something. No, you got to do for me. Don't work that way. Please do not
That's
be
not
that
that's not
person.
giving. That's not
Don't.
giving. If you're
Yeah,
expecting
that's
something in
a
return,
condition,
it's
right?
not
That's a condition. You have created a
correct.
condition. If not that way, don't be that person for
Don't you hate
God's
it when you
sake.
quote your parents? Because my mum used to say, "Don't give because you expect something in return. Give because you want
Right.
to."
Absolutely. Give because it's in your heart. Just do the
Mm.
damn thing. Don't worry about getting something back, and please don't stop giving, because it's one of the most beautiful things you're ever going to do. And the universe has got you back. Don't you worry about that. You are going to be paid back tenfold for
Well,
every
even in your
little
biology, I mean, we know that now. Giving actually releases things, chemicals in your body that
endorphins.
helps you live longer.
Endorphins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really great. It's awesome. It's just look. I love this work, and I love the message behind this book. This book, and this work, and I love reminding people of it, because I find that, especially in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of loss, a lot of
Mm.
loss. People are destabilized, and loss comes from work. Loss of work, loss of money, loss of jobs, loss of friends, loss of family, loss of identity, loss of go down the list. It's just kind of been a loss kind of feeling. Look at our
Mm.
world politics. Look at just go down the list. It's just a kind of was
You could
kind
turn
of
it into
really
a comedy. You just have to watch your last presidential debate. It's a comedy.
exactly. Yeah. I'd rather not, thank you. But I mean, there are other ways that
We
other
laugh at
things.
you.
Yeah, so thank you. Let's not. But what I would like to do, well, all right, whatever. But I want to remind people all the time that there's a whole other way of looking at life and being in life. Yeah, we got to deal with all that too. But if you can concentrate on being the best you and really attracting, here's your word now, attracting all of the things from just having a really good energetic vibe around you.
Yeah.
We talk about all this stuff in the book, and that really goes a very, very, very long way.
Is that from what you're talking about there? And that's where I wanted to, if for someone that's feeling low self-esteem, that's why I wanted to come back to the giving component.
Yeah.
Is that, from that perspective, is that a simple step someone could take when they're going, you're feeling, and I remember this when I was young and stupid. I was sitting in my car.
Still old, and I got those stupid moments, but I'll go through
I was
it's
sitting in my
right.
car feeling sorry for myself, listening to a sad song about, something along why won't anyone love me, and playing, and it was in a tape deck, so I was rewinding it and playing it again and crying
Right.
my eyes out. And I
Right.
was so self-absorbed, if I'm going to be honest, that why didn't
Yes.
someone love me? But what I later realized is by just getting out and helping people, because a few weeks later I was helping out at a charity function, and I was helping people
Yeah.
there. I was feeling great about me. Is that a simple step people can do, is just don't focus on yourself. If you're feeling low self-esteem or you're feeling sad, just go out and help somebody.
Well, the first thing that I thought of when you said that, why doesn't somebody love me, was, well, how lovable are you?
Yeah.
How lovable
Yeah.
are you? And
Yeah.
therein lies the work I talk about. If you want to call it effort, you can call it whatever you like. It's fine. It's semantics. I'm talking about make the changes that you need to make it about not you. I mean, of course, self-esteem is you. Obviously, we want to live in happy, healthy self-esteem, and a lot of that has to do with, how are we making other people feel? Like, what are we doing for everyone else? Bringing in the good vibes, doing the right things. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. Forgiving yourself. We have a whole thing in the book about, forgiving yourself. We talk to the mirror about, I love you and I forgive you. We all made mistakes, and we all want to hold on to all of that stuff. We want to hold on to, all that yucky stuff that, life, but they were life lessons. And that's where I want everybody to grasp the importance of the yucky stuff. It serves, it's there for a reason. And it will teach you what you do and want in your life and what you do not want in your life. And you will steer clear of it the next time.
Yeah, I love that. Clarissa, it's an amazing book, The Self-Esteem Regime. Lots of reads, 12 chapters of reads from release all the way through to reciprocal, which is where I think you're getting to when you finish up at chapter 12, is that when you actually put this stuff out there, when you give out there, good things come. Well, it automatically happens within your body anyway, where you produce those chemicals that make you feel wonderful. Yep. But it also comes back, and it may not come back from where you expect it to come back, but it always comes back. Is that the underlying message to self-esteem? Is just put good things out there, and you'll feel good about yourself.
Being the best possible person that you can be for yourself and for everyone else. That's what good, happy, healthy self-esteem is. And I will not stop screaming this message from the rooftops until this entire world is living as an esteemed being. And that is really the end goal. It's the end game. Being esteemed by yourself and certainly by others is a wonderful place to be. I cannot tell you how important this, I had a rotten 2022. And it was funny because the book had just dropped a few months. It dropped on November 11th. And then by the 15th, I was sick with COVID right straight through Christmas 2021. By the time I was able to pick up the book and, pick up the promotion of the book, it was like 3 months late, 2-3 months later until I really got myself back. And I lost my entire Google Drive last year. My mother was in a horrific car accident. I had to stop everything for 6 months and take care of her. And I had shut down a relationship. I mean, I went through a 2022 that was one of the worst years of my life. And the idea that I have done 200 podcasts and I have talked about this book has been my saving grace. It was the reason I got up in the morning. It was the message was so important to me that no matter how bad I was feeling about my life, how behind I was getting with work, no matter how my heart was broken, no matter how frustrated I was I lost my entire Google Drive. I want you to wake up tomorrow and everything on your computer is gone, but I won't go there to tell you how traumatic my last year was. The idea that I did 200 podcasts speaking about this book and this message was that powerful, right? Every time, notwithstanding the year I was having, not every time I did a podcast, I would get up, I'd take that deep breath and go, yep, I know why. I know why. I know my why. I know my why.
I love that. Love the work you're doing, Clarissa. It's so wonderful and helps so many people. Clarissa Burt's book, The Self-Esteem Regime. If I can speak correctly, I'm not having a good time speaking today. But it's amazing. There's so much stuff in there about finding your self-esteem and finding who you are and about helping the world be a better place. Thank you very much for taking the time to write the book, to share the book, and obviously sounds like you went through a traumatic year last year but actually to continue on and go out and do that.
But I'm still here to tell the story, Damien, so that's all good.
Yeah, and you bring so much enthusiasm to the whole time that you're talking about this. It's a very passionate topic, but it's really, I just love how much that you're helping people. So it's wonderful. Thank you for taking time to be on the podcast.
Thank you so much to you.
Thank you for being part of the Share.care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes for others and for you.